Everyone, welcome to episode 78 of Nutanix Weekly. I'm your host, Andy Whiteside. I've got the crew back. Like it's a whole gang. I feel like I'm looking at an episode of the Muppets. How are you guys doing? Today is
Good.
27th, 2023. I'll ask you guys a question and then I start talking again and I'll give you a chance to answer. That's one way to get it done. We'll go around the horn here. I'll start with Philip Sellers, who's on my left, at least virtually. Philip, how's it going?
Going good, Andy.
Hungover from Turkey?
Well, I did take my required afternoon nap after my large plate of turkey. We had a nice fried turkey, so I took advantage of that.
Yeah, I slept the whole day away because I got a stomach bug the night before. I didn't eat any turkey.
That's the worst way to spend Thanksgiving.
It's pretty bad. I'm going to be in the doghouse forever for it. I don't get sick often, but when I do, I ruin everybody else's holiday. Jara Cox is working out of a phone booth, I think.
Trying to. Howdy. Had a good Thanksgiving. We smoked our turkey. And to my knowledge, no one has gotten sick yet.
It's good. Did you smoke it or did someone else smoke it?
I smoked it.
Okay. My family had a smoked turkey too. I'm not a smoker, but I need to get into it because everybody loves it. So I'm missing out, I think.
We've fried in the past. Love frying. Love smoking. My wife is fine with anything that involves her getting the oven back all day. So,
but that does help.
That's the part I can promise is that our turkey will never go back in the oven.
Yeah, yeah, that's probably a good idea. Cleanup's probably a little easier too for everybody, I think. Harvey Green, how's it going?
Pretty good. Pretty good.
You guys still taking the government world by storm?
Yes, absolutely.
So Harvey runs
How'd you cook your turkey? How'd you cook your turkey, Harvey?
I did not cook it. I just ate it.
Yeah. Those are the easiest ways to do it. So Harvey, then if you didn't do it, then who did it?
The best part about that is I actually don't even know. It was there. I ate it. I didn't have to worry about anything, and it was glorious.
Turkey as a service.
As a service. So, it's customary to thank the person who cooked the turkey, but since you don't know who that was, then you probably did not thank the person who cooked the turkey.
I thanked the person who was hosting, whose house I went to.
Yeah, that's good. That's probably all you got to do. Ben Rogers. Ben, how's it going?
It's going well, Andy. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. It's a Monday after a holiday, but it was, I guess, slowing down towards the end of the year, maybe kind of. I don't think people expect much on the Monday after Thanksgiving. Maybe that's the answer.
Well, I'm in the Harvey bus, but I did know who baked our turkey. It was actually our niece, but I'm lucky because my wife has 3 sisters and a sister-in-law. So you get those 4 women together. You don't have to worry about dinner. They'll task out to the younger crowd. So we had our younger nieces involved this year. All I had to do was fix the banana pudding, which was real easy to do for me. And it was a great day, man. So I had a great Thanksgiving, but I'm along the Harvey line. Let somebody else take care of it. I'll do the little bit you want me to do, but I'm glad that my wife has 3 sisters and a sister-in-law that love to do that holiday stuff. So good Thanksgiving all around.
You used the word bake. Did you bake? Did somebody bake your turkey?
I don't know how they fixed it. I know it was good. I know it was juicy. And I ate plenty of it, and I was lucky. We were at my brother-in-law's, who has a nice widescreen TV that likes to do football, and I was lucky enough to hit his recliner with his little blanket, and I was out for about 2 or 3 hours after I ate. So I was fat, dumb, and happy and sleepy and really enjoyed myself.
So I'm actually loving this topic. I didn't mean to do this, but it's kind of worked out. You got fry the turkey, you got smoke the turkey, you got bake or roast the turkey. At the end of the day, you don't care really as long as you get good turkey, right?
That's it.
How does that apply to cloud computing and Nutanix in various forms of cloud? Do you care as long as you get good implementation, good infrastructure to run your workloads? Is it a similar conversation? Am I making this up? Am I stretching too far?
No, honestly, if you didn't go there, Andy, I was going to say, you know, half our respondents that did eat turkey and remain vertical for at least part of Thanksgiving Day um, did enjoy the turkey as a service outcome. But I was going to
Yes.
point out that one of those sounded like it was a sole provider, and one was sort of a synergy of multiple providers, right? Which probably both delivered a fantastic outcome, but one might have needed a bit more coordination, let's say.
And I would highlight, as this entire group, none of you did it the really what I would call old school way, where you tie up an oven and you make a big mess in your house and potentially set off the smoke alarm. You could have, and it would still probably have been good turkey if you baste it and keep it moist and all the good stuff. But it was new ways, and in some cases, we didn't even know how it happened. It just happened.
Yes. We have evolved and become smarter.
Well,
Actually, Harvey, outsourcing is nothing new.
well, in that case, you had these microservices that were at work. You had, the four sisters that then kind of tasked out to other people of the family. Here's the individual task that you need. And then as it came together, all these microservices really did give a complete dinner that a lot of people liked, that had different palettes of food that they would want to enjoy,
And then you extend that out to the the beets and the potatoes and the macaroni and cheese and the stuffing. I mean, did the host provide those in their own oven, or did they buy it from a store? Did they order and it showed up through Uber Eats? I mean, you don't know. In some cases, just as long as it was good, you didn't care.
Exactly.
All right. So our blog for today, from November 16th, from Mark Rioli, maybe. Multiple clouds versus multi-cloud. What's the difference and why does it matter? I think it's that conversation.
So we're going to keep recording. Despite my best guess, we've lost all listeners now because we are professionals. Anybody who made it through that very stretched analogy, thank you. We'll keep going.
Dara, you're the one who brought these. We had two blogs, but this is the one we decided to go with. And forgetting the fact that we're post-Thanksgiving, why does this blog and what we're going to cover here, why did it matter? Why do you think it's relevant that we speak about it?
So I think it goes to the heart of a lot of conversations we have with our customers, and gets. We'll try to keep it practical here, but it flirts with being fairly philosophical around consuming cloud and outcomes, and the title here, right, being multiple clouds versus multi-cloud. What's the difference? Gets into what does it mean to be multi-cloud versus what does it mean to be in multiple clouds, right? And what's that mean to you, to your customers internally, to the organization?
Yeah. Ben, are you having lots of conversations with people about this very topic?
Well, so what's interesting to me personally about this, from talking to customers, is what I find is that a lot of customers are in multi-cloud and they're siloed. So they have a team that works on their AWS environment. They have a team that works on their Azure environment. And of course, the Azure guys might know a little bit about AWS, but what is bad is when you're looking at a management of that, and now you're having to, as a manager, go, I've got this expert of AWS, I got this expert of Azure, I've got this expert of on-prem, I've got, and so where the multi-cloud becomes a little bit of a problem for people, in my opinion, and what I've seen talking to customers, is it's not a uniform landscape. It's individual landscapes. And we haven't even gotten into the conversations about how do you look at cost and how do you keep the vendors, honest with their cost when you're siloed like that. So, just looking at it from talking to customers, when I see multi-cloud, or when I talk to them about hybrid cloud, multi-cloud, multiple clouds, I see that most customers are running in a multiple cloud siloed environment, which has its own set of challenges and problems to deal with.
And I'm thinking, people listening are probably thinking cloud as in Azure, AWS, GCP, but it could be private cloud, it could be colo cloud, it could be many, many clouds that this conversation applies to, not just public cloud or not.
100%. In fact, I would say it ought to be, right? Like if your private environment is not already operating like a cloud, well, we've got good news for you there, right? But that would be, but we also don't want that to become its own siloed cloud.
And then the flip side of this is, if you've bought into total public cloud, then okay, but you're probably missing opportunities to be more efficient, cost effective, or control your own destiny, or a little bit of all the above. Maybe. Harvey, this cloud, multi-cloud versus multiple clouds, is that relevant in your SLED and Fed government conversations?
100%. We talk plenty with people about cloud and the concept of why it makes sense to have things in multiple clouds, but still have something like Ben was talking to that overlays both to not make things as complex as they have to be, or as they could be, I should say. And that piece of it, I kind of liken to, you want to watch a movie. How do you go watch a movie? And some people will say, well, I go to Netflix, or some people will say, well, I go to, I don't know, Disney Plus, or I go to Hulu. Yeah. Your multi-cloud would be whatever device you're using to go to all of those. It has that overlay to see into all of them and allow you to open it and go watch the movie you want to watch.
Right. I mean, just like what you were saying, I go to Netflix, the software delivery, where it came from and where I was sitting at that moment, well, that's almost irrelevant. Why do you have to answer that part of the question anymore?
So this is what's interesting about Harvey's example, though, and what irritates me. I consume Netflix, Hulu, such and such. But if somebody says, I want you to watch this program, I have no way of searching all of those instances to go, here's where it's at, and here's where the best price is. And so when you compare that to this what we're talking about here, I'm sure there are IT managers that are out there going, here's my workload. I'm looking for a way to figure out where's the best resource to put that workload, and what's that going to look like from a cost perspective over longevity of time. So I like the idea that I've got services, like the Netflix, the Hulus, the yada yadas. But what I don't like is if I want a resource, if I want a movie, I have to know where that's at, and that gets cumbersome in my life.
But Ben, we'll talk about the one that the IT managers can use in just a few minutes, and then afterwards, I'll talk to you about one that you can use at home that will help you out too.
Thank you.
Step in getting it to where it's as easy as what Ben said and as smart as what Ben said, isn't it to get it to where it's delivered as a ubiquitous service from somewhere you don't have to care about? And then the next step's going to be being able to, at any moment in time, get it wherever you want it at the most cost effective and operationally efficient way?
Yes, 100%.
Yeah, and I think that one of the factors that comes into play here is a lot of customers are in a place of being reluctantly multiple cloud, through, acquisition. My opinion may have been use Netflix, but then I've acquired a company that's a Paramount Plus, and now I'm having to deal with, their estate and and bring it back to, the library and bring it back to my standards. And so, I think that's a big part of the conversation too, is that even if you don't intend to be a multiple cloud consumer, there are many paths to get you there reluctantly.
It's probably fair to say that unless you're living in a cave and have your own data center, and that's all you're ever going to use, data centers plural, lots of OpEx or CapEx costs there, you're going to be multi-cloud, whether you like it or not. You're going to be multiple clouds, whether you like it or not. The question is, are you going to have a multi-cloud strategy within that?
Yeah, 100% agree with that, because, each one of these cloud providers has their own opinion of how to do things and how things should run, and even how they name things, which is maddening at times as you come in new and fresh to figure out what this service name has to do with the brand name they've given it.
I guess one way to look at it, though, to kind of argue against what I just said, you could buy into one vendor's cloud solution, including their on-prem tie-in piece, but at that point, you're in, and getting out is going to be really hard.
That's what they call lock-in. And at that point, you have the your operational cost is dictated by the other company. You have no leverage to bang against them, especially if you get like where it gets real interesting to me with this is in automation. When you start buying into the automation platform of some of these cloud providers, that really gets you locked in as well. So, again, multiple cloud versus multi-cloud.
Well, and then to add on to that, it's not just the automation and things, it's also around, I lost the thought. Sorry. We'll move on.
Jairo, I want you to cover this section here. It says multiple clouds doesn't mean true multi-cloud, which we've been talking around it for the last 10 minutes here, but I want you to kind of define it. I also do want to throw this out there for you and for the rest of the group. Things like, and I hate to bring this acronym up over and over again because everybody else in the world does, but AI, artificial intelligence, becomes much, much more doable, I think, unless you tell me it doesn't, when you get to a true multi-cloud strategy versus trying to live within multiple clouds.
No, 100%. You're totally right, Andy. So to your point around, is picking one cloud an option, perfectly valid option, right? Then you've moved beyond turkey as a service to full on like turkey dinner as a service, right? Like whatever they want to offer, whatever they're charging, you're signed up for that in advance, right? You're pretty committed to that point. But to your point, the benefit is that when, I like to say that we help our customers become these cloud providers to their businesses, right? Whether that involves full private cloud, colo private cloud, colo hybrid cloud, or public cloud all as one, right? Like if you work for, let's say, Acme, we help you become the Acme cloud provider using all these various things. AI can be a huge driver for that, right? Because that's one of the most today, let's say, as we record this in late 2023, one of the most differentiated cloud offerings, right? When I go to cloud A versus B versus C, I get very, very different AI offerings, and different kinds of apps might want to use those very differently. So then, even if I did want to commit to one cloud provider, now I'm limiting my AI consumption options, right? Which probably doesn't feel terribly cloudy, right? So helping eliminate these silos, that's even for net new development, right? To say nothing of, what if the other cloud provider comes in with a better price per pound, price per VM, price per whatever, right? The more you locked in you are, to Ben's point, the less I can go take advantage of that for the business and do my job as a technology governance professional for the business, right? So migration, multi-cloud, to your point, I think is 100% an inevitability. Migration is an inevitability, right? As applications move to where they're going to run the best and move closer and closer to the data that powers them and probably powers the business, which changes over time, right? So how do we help our customers stay agile, right? Stay independent, maintain that autonomy, move easily to where it's cost effective, and offer the best services within their cloud portfolio to their customers, the rest of the business.
And we'll change, weekly, daily.
Changes constant. Yeah.
Well, it also, let's look at this from an app development perspective. One client that we're talking to, again, man, they're siloed. So they've got developers that know AWS, developers that know Azure. That's not sustainable over time. And they're starting to realize this. And so they're looking for more of, we need an app development infrastructure that everybody buys into, and then the cloud resource. It's just another leg, man. Does this run better in private versus public? If it does run better in public, or it needs to be in public, which public is it? But from the app development, they're developing it for the entire infrastructure, not just these silos that can only live in those certain cloud environments.
Philip, let me have you do it. I think we've talked a ton about this, but give me one statement that defines the uniqueness between multiple clouds and multi-cloud strategy.
It's really around the management, the operational parts of how you use the cloud. Does it manage the same? Can you roll it up? Can you see it? Do you have that ability to operate the same across all those different regions, locations, and providers?
I 100% agree with that. In the next section is going to talk about it. But Jairo, if I were to say that multiple clouds kind of just happens, multi-cloud is a strategy within that. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think you're totally right. Like multi-cloud happens for lots of reasons, by acquisition, by new applications, by lack of governance sometimes and too much autonomy, multi-cloud is an intentional strategy, right? And a reining in of the chaos.
So it's designed.
Yeah.
Multi-cloud can happen from all the reasons you said. Multiple cloud can happen. Multi-cloud has to be designed and thought out, and it's a platform and infrastructure.
Yeah, has intentionality, governance.
No, I love it. I love that conversation, and it comes up a lot when I meet with clients. But occasionally they will push back on my "that's not a strategy," and they'll say that the workloads need to run on the native hyperscalers because that's where they were born. That's how they're most efficient that way, or that was the intention of how it was architected. Is that just like not true? Is that a viable comeback to my comment that that's not a strategy, that's just happening kind of thing?
I'd push back on that in terms of like native VMs can be simpler, the same way only using one cloud certainly is simpler, but you pay for that in other ways through like loss of agility, loss of mobility, and so forth, right? So native VMs are certainly simple. Performance, I think that's certainly debatable, and native and like sort of born there. Yeah, you can trace virtual machines back to like mainframes and BSD jails if you go back far enough, right? So I don't think anyone really has a claim on that.
Well, and I think you're on the right track there too. The virtual machines to me don't feel cloud native. That's not by definition what you look at as cloud native. Containerized applications, things like that are scaled out, load balanced. Those are more of your cloud native things. And so I think a lot of IaaS and a lot of the folks that are pushing back on you, Andy, who say that aren't really thinking about cloud native to begin with. They're actually talking about traditional virtual machines in a much more traditional run operation pattern.
Sure, I agree with you there, Philip. Other than to say you're right, most people would not say VMs or caring about an OS, right, as a differentiator is terribly cloudy in some ways for like true cloud native apps. You're right. But I also think there's very, very few companies that can live solely in a cloud native apps only world, right? For most IT departments, right? The challenge is I have some new bleeding edge development that is totally containerized as a service, functions and so forth. And it has to live and interact with the rest of my ecosystem that is defined by virtual machines and probably will be for a very long time. So you're right. I see that too, right? A lot of people sort of maybe perhaps over rotate and solve for one part of the stack and let that influence the rest of the stack, kind of like what Andy says he's hearing there, compared to taking a long, hard look at like, what do I really have to govern here?
And to add to that, that's why a lot of the big banks still have mainframes. I mean, technology, tech debt, it comes along with us. And, to just put a fine point on what you just said, Jaira, I mean, some of these old applications can't go away. And that's why having a good infrastructure that's portable and transportable, it really works. I mean, this is one of the big talking points that I have as people say I'm going all in on cloud. I'm like, what about that old client server application that runs on Windows 2003 only? You still got to support it. You still got it running. It's not compatible. So what do you do?
Yeah. Or even some customers that are more in a space of like, so like, the cloud we help our customers offer to the business, right, can be anything, right? Private, hybrid, colo, partner, any flavor, right? But each of those has different strengths and weaknesses, right? And so like public cloud 100% is agility, right? And on-demand consumption and no forecasting required and everything as a service. If you're not deploying things or rebuilding things or inventing things or writing things, right? If you're just in the running part of the equation, then those aren't the things you need to optimize for, right? Someone actually probably cares about lower cost of operating model versus lower time to deploy.
So, Harvey, I think Ben and Philip both mentioned minimal measurement for a strategy is whether you have a single place to go and manage this. Is that single control plane the simplest way to measure whether you have multi-cloud versus multiple clouds?
I mean, I do think that's a very simple measurement. One of the other ones that I was kind of sitting here thinking about too during that last conversation is, multiple cloud would be I can see everything, that is hosted here, and I can see everything that's hosted here, and like all the way down the stack, because all of these cloud providers have, different models and different things that they offer, different services they offer. Multi-cloud would be I can see all of them at the same time. And I think that's a much, much bigger ask. So yes, I can manage them all at one time is great. And that's the great first initial measurement there. But then being able to see and access from one place for the whole way through, that goes beyond just that first single measurement there.
So, Jairo, when you're meeting with clients, is this idea that they have a single place to go measure and maintain the environment, is that the number one thing they gravitate towards when you start talking about true multi-cloud strategy?
See everything is high up there. Measure everything is high up there. One of the hottest button items that comes up in my conversations is the cost governance, right?
Yes.
I want to place something where I get where my dollar stretches the furthest. Where's that? Right, that intelligent cost governance for placement is huge.
Ben, your conversations with clients come back to these three things: cost management, efficiency, and complexity.
Yeah, there's a fourth one there. And Jairo, I want you to keep me between the lines here, but there's a fourth one I would love to add here. And this performance, man. A lot of times when you go to a multi-cloud environment, you're going to get a higher performance. One, because of the I as a service, but two, you have, where you pick your destiny of where you want this to go. And so I would put a fourth point there. As a lot of conversations I had, they need the performance that native cloud's not getting them. They're not getting the performance out of the VMs that they want, or if they do try to press the button to get the performance they want, this cost goes sky high. So manage cost. I love that, Jairo. I was going to say that, man, the cost governance of all this, but also the performance gains you get out of controlling your own destiny with a platform like Nutanix.
Yeah, I fully agree. I mean, in some ways, it's my mind goes back to all the things that all of us help to solve customer challenges in the scope of like one data center. 4 walls, right? We always would have design standards and patterns we try to follow and adhere to, and then for the right justification, the right workload, I need X, I need Y. We can deviate and say, okay, higher performance or a different kind of size or evolution there. It's that same sort of like, it's good to have standards and good to have trends and design patterns, but also be able to say yes to the business when we have exceptions and the weird shaped things. It's just that same sort of data center thinking blown up to planet size scale.
So the next section of the article talks about with Nutanix, you can have hybrid multi-cloud, increased efficiency. Philip, what have we not covered about the concept of increased efficiency with true multi-cloud and operations?
Yeah, I mean, it's really around, the fact that it's the same software stack, so it's the same management and it can unify. You've got all of the things that have been orchestrated that you can expect on an on-premises Nutanix cluster that you get inside of the cloud as well. It's the one-click upgrades. It's the quick time to value. I think the only thing that we often run into is kind of what does the hyperscaler provide us as far as hardware, and that's still a very real constraint sometimes with one particular cloud in particular. So we do run into some things there where it's hard to fit things in, but that's the only thing. And so that's where you can go to colo, you can do to manage service, you can do other things if you don't necessarily fit in that particular hyperscaler. So it is really around, just bringing the management all together. It's all Prism at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And to your point, Philip, when you look at it that way, you're really not adding complexity, nor are you compromising in the cloud-like outcomes and operating model that you offer back to the business, right? To your point, when you're solving a problem that way.
Yeah, and you probably are tired of hearing this. I know Jairus heard it a lot from me, but it's a platform play, and that's what I love to talk about. Is you've got all of these other services that run on top of the Nutanix platform, and for that cloud native customer that is doing containers, you've got Kubernetes services to go alongside of those virtual machines and all those odd cases and those client server applications that you're dragging along, kicking and screaming. So, yeah, it is not a one size dictated t-shirt size that you have to choose from. You can bring it and right size it. And I think that's another increase in efficiency. You get to right size it. You don't end up with, the article mentions micro waste. If our listeners aren't sure what micro waste is, it's this idea of having to go up to a larger VM because of the t-shirt sizing in the cloud provider, and you're not able to actually choose the resources you need. And so that ends up inflating your costs.
I mean, one thing I want to add here that's not mentioned in the article, but man, labor. This is going to make your team's efficiency just gains because they're not going to have to know all these different platforms. They're not going to have to be worried and have visibility in all these different platforms. You're going to sit them under a unified pane of glass, and they're going to be able to basically do everything inside of the management platform, regardless of location, regardless of silo, all these things we've talked about. And for the company, getting employees, retaining employees, this is a huge benefit, and so we see companies sometimes looking at this, we can't keep up with all of this and our employees can't keep up with it. Give us something that everybody can learn and be on the same path as we, develop this.
So probably without being said, but Jaira, maintain workload portability. We've talked about that a little bit from maybe the aspect Ben was just talking about as far as the workload and the continuing education, but also the vendor lock-in piece. Anything else to add on workload portability?
The portability itself, I think, is pretty apparent, but the things that saves you sometimes go a bit undersung, right? So like doing it without retooling, doing it without refactoring, doing it without retraining, without tweaking the workload at all, right? Is that's where the real, wind hits your sails. Is that then gets easy for the business, easy for the team to then go pull off, right? This is no longer a science project. This is simply kind of a standard, move the app.
Well, and I'm going to extend it another step too. So maybe not moving between clouds, but maybe just a generational hardware upgrade. Like AWS originally came out with the i3 metal. Now it's an i4 metal. Guess what? You can order that up and move your workloads, and now you're on the latest and greatest. So I think we're going to see this also help from generational upgrades because we're still kind of early in this. I mean, the solutions haven't been out long enough for us to go through Intel chip refreshes and hardware generation refreshes, but it's going to help us there as well.
Well, and I want to brag on Nutanix here for a minute. When it says workload portability, you're doing that with a single license. So you buy the license from us, and that can go in any resource that you want it to. And I think that that's a differentiator to our competitors. And so when I look at workload portability, yeah, the technical things are great, but if I'm looking at the bottom line and how I budget for this and how I maintain this, the sustainability of this over time, having one license to deal with makes me feel good because I know it will go anywhere I need it to go when I need it to go there.
Yep. Ben, you want to take this next one? Accelerate transformation initiatives. I think that goes back to what we were just talking about, but certainly not limited to.
Well, I mean, for me, I just look at, again, a conversation I'm having with a client on their development process and how they really want to look at multi-cloud to flatten out that process. So not only, am I removing the silos, but am I able to reduce my time to market? They've got this just-in-time approach. It's, am I able to move at the agility and as fast as market will need me to, or that I'm allowed to? And again, just flattening out, this is going to increase your time to development. It's going to ease at the time to development. It's going to ease managing the labor force and time to development. And again, we'll talk about this in the next end, but looking at cost across all these silos. If you're a manager, if you're in multiple clouds, that is difficult to do, if possible, in my opinion.
Harvey, all these things apply to your government customers?
They do. Ultimately, as Ben was just speaking to, you want to have the quickest way to get from we need to do this to, okay, we've done this. And a lot of times, from the government sector, they do need those quick events. They're, either something wasn't planned or something happened that wasn't planned. Downtime, things like that. Just being able to be nimble and, move from one place to the other makes a huge difference when you're hosting something, especially out to, potentially an entire state or an entire state's worth of constituents.
And I asked that because it wasn't that long ago that, SLED, Fed, they were talking about never going to the cloud. Now they all seem to be running as fast or faster than everybody else to it.
Yes, they, definitely plenty of additional security measures, much more stringent on governance and things like that. But yeah, I mean, ultimately, so people are, doing what they can to make it so that they have a platform that they can make things happen on quickly. And as Ben pointed out earlier, without forecasting.
Yeah.
I just need this to work like right now. Like, please make this work right now.
That leads. Go ahead, Ben.
I got a question about that because I was actually talking to another SC this morning about this. Do you also think that lack of labor force has something to do with government looking more at cloud services because the labor force they need to manage those data centers are no longer there or being phased out? Or, I mean, I don't know, but I've had another colleague that has mentioned this to me, and you making that comment right there just has me curious, man. What are you seeing on that end of it?
So that is an easy yes. A lot of times, and we see it a lot in the smaller governments or the ones that don't have, a very big recruiting department or, able to go and pay what private sector is paying for some of these administrators. There's sometimes a talent gap that's not getting addressed very quickly or very easily because it's hard to get people who are knowledgeable and who, in the private sector can command a certain amount of money or a certain amount of, benefits or other things, whatever it is. Maybe they're not at the location, something that simple. But just making it so that they're able to still make ends meet because, ultimately, like, you still need to use your water. The potholes still need to be filled. Like, all of those normal things still have to happen. And they can't stop because, we couldn't find, an IT administrator. Other things have to take that place.
That's interesting. Thank you for answering that for me, because I wondered when he said that today. I was like, that would be, ashamed if that was the case, but that is the reality. And to the sellers that listen to these podcasts, man, that's motivation to hit the street and talk to your customers about, man, are you finding it? Are you having trouble keeping that infrastructure running? And could the cloud help you in those areas?
No. So I think part of the argument at one point for government not going into the cloud was the security piece. Jaira, do you think some of them have realized that they can be more secure in the cloud than they could in that brick and mortar data center they've been protecting or were protecting?
I think it's the security benefit is one you can enjoy across the entire enterprise, right? So doesn't necessarily tilt for or against, but it's a benefit that we think really all workloads should be able to be entitled to, no matter where the customer chooses to run them, right? That ability to have, ransomware detection, incident rollback to previous good states, the platform being built with security in mind at every layer, right? Harden out of the box, and then even more controls available to customers that really want to go to the nth degree. I mean, that to us is just table stakes.
Yeah. Well, and that's
this is going to be a real interesting conversation when you start getting companies that have to deal with data governance and locality and how that's managed. And multiple clouds going to be a big challenge when you've got a global company and they've got to keep data in certain geographic regions. Multi-cloud will make that much more easier. And I think that's where you're really going to start to see Nutanix shine, because at the base of our platform, we're managing the data. So we know where those zeros and ones are being generated, where they're being housed, or where they're being restored. What you're going to see out of us is, a collection of security utilities that will look at things like, where is the data sitting? Is it supposed to sit there? Is there governance around this? And so again, multiple cloud environments are going to make that almost impossible to do. And that's where Nutanix is really driving the platform of being able to be a leader in that space. Jairo, I hope I spoke correctly there, but I know I've talked to some of our leadership and they go, big picture, years down the road, this is where we're really going to start to ramp up, as far as our platform and where people are going to see the goodness out of Nutanix long term.
Spot on, man. No notes.
Well, and I think maybe you said this, maybe you didn't, but the idea you're going to know where it is and where it's been all this time too. And I'm not talking about the file, I'm talking about the actual ones and zeros, where they've been the whole time.
Yep, exactly.
Not to lead this one, but the security, and then the Ben mentioned the workforce, and then honestly, and Harvey, going back to the gov, and this applies to all industries really, when they started staring into the face of that next capital expenditure, did that speed up their direction towards cloud versus?
Yeah, honestly, that does. And, the unfortunate events of, ransomware and viruses and malware, that also sped that up too, because ultimately, you get to the point where you realize these platform providers, it is not in their best interest for anybody on the platform they're providing to get hacked or have some kind of event happen. And so they have an army basically built up of people who are making sure that things are secured and taken care of. And ultimately, that's an army that local government doesn't have at the city level, the county level, the state level. They just don't have that same amount of resources available to them in terms of people or process or software to help make it as secure in the same way.
And then you apply that conversation to the idea you need to be able to have redundancy in everything you just talked about. Now all of a sudden, cloud makes sense, and to do that right, a multi-cloud strategy that includes at least one other place for this stuff to be available.
Yeah, absolutely.
Jairo and Ben both, any comment on this, the disaster recovery piece that makes up the multi-cloud strategy?
Just that it makes these kind of things easy for our customers, whether that's a planned for or a realized need, let's say. That realization, can hit pretty hard around, oh wait, my application's in any kind of cloud environment, right? Whether that's private cloud, hybrid cloud, colo cloud, multi-cloud needs disaster recovery, needs business continuity, right? Just because I moved it into someone else's data center doesn't mean it no longer needs DR. So that ability to say, well, okay, great. Well, if I need that, how do I easily add DR to protect my workloads? Well, that's of course that's built in, right, with our platform. So then you can go get that and add that anywhere you wanted to, right, with a partner or in another cloud environment, and then ensuring that business continuity, right, so that the way that as we've said here before, constrained staff can then recover those applications for the business. That really matters, right? And then we've all been in the room here. Disaster recovery to public cloud using cloud as DR, commonly investigated as a first use case, right, for cloud, right? I'll keep the apps, but you keep my backup copies of them, and I'll use you if I need you.
And is it? I don't know if you guys have enough experience on the vendor side, on the value-added reseller partner side. We see that happen, and when that business continuity disaster recovery kicks in, now they go into the cloud for that temporary, but they don't seem to ever come out. Once they get there and experience it, they never come back.
Sure. I mean, things that solve problems for businesses tend to get very sticky.
Yeah.
So, Andy, I'll make a comment here just based on customer experience, me being a customer as well. You need something that's testable. You can't have a DR plan without testing it. Testing it is not just backing up and, saying the backup was successful. So you need to be able to test your backup plan and be able to, cocoon it if you need to run it on the DR side. You need something that's simple. I mean, I've seen a lot of companies that will get their backups to the cloud, but when it comes to time to recover those or actually use them in a disaster, they haven't thought through all the networking, yada, yada, yada. And it needs to be flexible, man, because DRs don't come all in the same package. You know, you might have different levels of DR that makes you have to, man, implement, you know, different business continuity plans. So again, just wrapping around this, man, Nutanix will make it simple, flexible, and testable and repeatable.
Right. Yeah. So Ben just kind of wrapped us up on that, but it's really what we're talking about, right? So just simplified, cost-effective, controllable. What words am I missing there, Jaira, that really helps somebody understand what this multi-cloud strategy versus multiple clouds means to an organization?
Automatable, universal experience, right? So that, you know, it's not similar, it's identical, right? No matter where I want to put it. That's where my team really gets that force magnification effect, or that pressure off their back to go learn yet another silo, right? Because it's not another silo.
Right.
Harvey, throw in another one. What are we missing? Like, what have we not said here in the wrap-up?
I mean, visibility. We talked a bit about, you know, how to manage it. You know, I talked a bit about being able to see everything. And, you know, Jaira hit on cost governance, being able to actually see how much it costs me before, during, and after I've deployed it. Just visibility, and to be able also to take that visibility, not just seeing, you know, the before I do it, now that I've done it, but the after I've done it, and then take that the next step to be subscribe to reports, or have it be set up so that when you get audited, you can just say, hey, here's the data you're looking for, because everything is just there. That makes the biggest difference compared to trying to go and let me go look at this one, let me go look at this one, let me go look at this one, and try to pull all of that data. It's already there for you in a consumable format.
Okay, so consumable was one of the words, for
Yes.
sure.
Yes.
And then Philip, your turn. What other word that describes what we can do by moving to this multi-cloud strategy via Nutanix?
I'm going to go with common. It is common. It is the same. And so you have the ability to operate the same everywhere. And I think there's huge benefits to not having to change how you work. You know, cloud, hybrid cloud, you have these constructs of every different provider, and you know, all of this stuff that goes around with managing cloud doesn't necessarily add a lot of value to the business or to IT.
Yeah.
But you have to adopt those constructs to work in their world. With a solution like Nutanix, you don't have to make those compromises, and you can still get the same results.
Here's what I find interesting about what we're talking about. That is all true, and you can get out of a cloud vendor or a cloud vendor or a cloud vendor, but you've got to go all in on that cloud vendor to get all the things you're just talking about. Or you have this ubiquitous piece of software like Nutanix that goes in between all of them, plus maybe a private data center, plus maybe a colo data center, if you want to get all those things you guys are talking about out of your multi-cloud strategy.
And then the flexibility later to change as things develop. That's the other big one for me.
Yeah, as things develop is important, because that could be cost, could be the change in the pricing schedule of the cloud provider. It could be the technology, could be that AI technology, that next leap that you need to be using and have your data near. Yeah, all those things are factors that come into where you need to run your workload.
So I'm gonna go off on something Philip said earlier. Man, it could be, you know, the business is growing. So my word that needs to be in this list is repeatable. So, you know, if you're having to grow your business, this is going to give you a way that, you know, every single site is the same. Every single resource you're using is being used and consumed the same. And to Harvey's comment, visibility, we're going to be able to give you visibility across that whole platform. So you're really going to know what you're doing from a business perspective.
All right, John, one last shot. You've heard all this. You've had your own pieces of it up till now. What's the word that brings all of this multi-cloud together? It's okay if we've already said it. I won't put you on the spot here, but is there a word we're missing?
No, I'm going to go for delightful, right? Like the platform, it's trite, but like the platform, we've always designed Nutanix to be something that drives customer satisfaction, right? Like people enjoy using it, people enjoy working with our support teams when you need to. It's got to pay for itself. TCO has to be right, capabilities have to be right, technology has to be right. But at the end of the day, better living through better software.
Yeah, okay, well, that's a big part of it for sure. To be able to do all that and have happy IT users and consumers, that's a factor that has to be factored in, element that has to be factored in.
Andy, you gotta bring in some music when he says that, like the song "Afternoon Delight." That would be just classic, man.
I wake up to "Lovely Day," whatever that is, every day. I don't even remember the name of the song. I guess whatever it is, and whoever sings it at this point. But yes, I mean, you gotta make it and frame it all up good, and having the technology that does what we've talked about here is a big piece of that. And then the company doing it with end user or systems admin enablement in mind, extremely valuable.
Yeah, and we've all been there, right? We've all been the IT guy in a past job who's been like, this is fine, but I'm ready for a different bag of cats to go wrestle, right? I'm going to leave this one for somebody else to pick up. And as we talk about even on this call, right, all the different aspects of like workforce constraints, right? Like preservation of your team, empowering them, letting them do more. Often, of course, we're all told to do more with less. That's very, very meaningful.
Yeah. All right, gentlemen. Well, I appreciate you joining me on a Monday to talk about multi-cloud versus multiple clouds. And, without a doubt, that's where Nutanix is focused. And I'll add one of the pieces. I'll say a word that actually you guys didn't say, but as you talk about Nutanix, you can't help but say it, and that is multi-cloud platform. Because it's more than just the execution of the the cloud strategy IaaS. It's the bringing the platform together that's multi-cloud versus just the IaaS piece of multiple clouds.
We can play the tape back. I'm going to give Philip full marks for I think he did say platform. So kudos, Philip.
Yep. Well, Andy, you and I have talked about this for a while. It irritated you for a while when people would say cloud and lump everything in the cloud, and you would really go, it's clouds. This is getting it back to that cloud idea. We're going to build you a cloud that consists of wherever you need your workload to be. So in my mind, I don't think of it as Azure or AWS. I kind of go back to the Citrix days. It's a resource location. Where do you need the workload? What resource location do you need these workloads to run in?
Yeah, I'm still challenged by that. Not only do I get challenged, it's not cloud, it's clouds. And specifically when people say cloud, they mean public cloud. They're not even taking into consideration different types of clouds. But I just let it slide most of the time these days.
And my last comment is that for customers, this sounds like a difficult conversation, but it really becomes an easy conversation once you look at the platform, because we remove a lot of that underlying complexity. And so, the most difficult conversation is getting people to believe that it is this simple. But once they start to test drive or look at, our demos, and then start to really see that, I can move VMs from resource location, have IP addresses live in both. I mean, it starts to open up their mind of, I can have a platform that has these different legs, and I don't have to worry about those legs, and I can be cost competitive across those legs.
Yeah. Well, gentlemen, I got to run, but this has been good, and I appreciate your time. Thanks, guys. Have a good week.
Thanks, Andy.